Sarah?
Yes, hey Kathy, we're live right now.
We're live?
Yep, we're live. Did you get my message in the chat? Look in the chat.
Okay.
Are we starting? It's 5 o'clock.
Go for it.
Go for it. Okay, here we are. What a nice looking screen. Just waiting for David and Ann to pop up. And there they are. Welcome, welcome everybody. This is the second of two Zoom panels about training on the North American continent. Some of you might have been here in April for a training of 4 American programs. And here we are, and it's June with 4 Canadian programs. So I want to say a couple of things. First, I want to thank UNIMA-USA for sponsoring these, and especially to Kathy and Sarah for really helping these panels move forward, or as the UNIMA USA people like to call them, Zoomies. So happy Zoomie to all of you. Thanks for attending. I'm Eric Bass. I'm one of the founders of Sandglass Theater in Putney, Vermont, and I do have some notes to refer to. I guess I should just briefly say that there are different committees on the UNIMA board, and I'm the chair of the Committee on Training, which is something near and dear to my heart. I'd like to introduce the panelists, and then each of the panelists will have about 5 minutes or so to kind of identify who they are and one or two quick things about their programs. What I have asked them to allude to is when their programs run, if there are specific dates, and if so, how long. Maybe a really brief history. Who usually attends the program, how many people, where they might be from, how much do they have to know about puppetry? And it's always fun if everybody would just say one thing that you really love about the time you spend teaching or running the workshop. Um, so let's get to it. Let's start out there over between the mountains and the prairie in the western part of Canada. Old Trout's dear founder, co-founder, Peter Balkwill. Peter, take it away and tell us a little about training.
Okay, I'll do that. I wrote down some stuff. It's going to sound super academic, but we'll address that when we get to that question. Anyway, and I have some images, so I'll just show you that really quickly. I will identify that I am speaking to you on the lands of Treaty 7, and which is made up of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Piikani and the Kainai, and the Tsuut'ina First Nations, as well as the Stoney Nakoda, Bears Paw, Wesley, Chiniki, and Goodstoney, and the Métis Alberta Region number 5 and 6. And it's important that I offer a land acknowledgement because a lot of what I'll be showing you is the land. And then let me fire up this share here. And then this is what we're going to play. Just bear with me for one quick second. Here we go. Yeah. Hilarious. So, many of the thoughts and ideas in our training align with the founding principles of the Old Trout Puppet Workshop, where some of the teaching derives, and much of our approach to art making specifically is tied to the fact that the Trouts met as counselors, leading extended backpacking trips in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. And from that, we decided to make ourselves as a puppet company. And our first studio was located right up against the Rocky Mountains down in southern Alberta and Blackfoot territory. Our understanding of ourselves come from the land and our need to rely on each other to survive in unpredictable environments. The Banff Puppet Intensive started as an extended residential experience and was one of the biggest training events that we held, aligning with the mandate that creative work should be fostered through a connection to community and be directly linked to the influence from the natural environment. We try to situate and work within the outdoors when possible. Working within the infrastructure of the Banff Center, folks stayed in close proximity to each other, ate all meals together, and had immediate access to a landscape that would remind the participant that the closest perfection to art can be found in nature. That's a person walking to the dining hall, which was an awesome veritable buffet of endless calories. The last Banff Puppet Intensive ran in January 2020 and hasn't been up since COVID, although the Banff Center is still recovering from that event and is just about to get to a place where they can reignite the Banff Puppet Intensive as we remembered it. At the last edition, the Banff Puppet Intensive was running 30 participants with 3 faculty and 1 shop assistant. Among the training arcs explored at the Banff Puppet Intensive, the primary mandate was to collide mask into puppetry and approach the idea of manipulation as a whole body physical exploration. Additional work included exercises informed through Suzuki training, ensemble physical movement that would align with the idea of the energy that's shared through human beings and what happens with that energy when we place it in proximity to an audience, and the idea of how we can explore the intensity of that energy as we connect to and invest in the human body. And then eventually the mask is stolen into the act of puppetry. discoveries are then driven by the exploration of the participants and just seeing where that work can go. Finally, at the end of the intensive, we are driven into a public performance where we like to formalize the work to an audience, but primarily so that we can explore how the audience helps change things once we put our work in front of it, how it wobbles a bit, how it intensifies, and that added energy completes that sort of cyclical relationship of the puppeteer through the puppet to the audience, back through the puppet to the puppeteer. In 2020, we cloned the process of the Banff Puppet Intensive into an East Coast version that we called the New England Puppet Intensive. The New England Puppet Intensive adhered to all of the principles that we were developing in Banff. It just simply allowed us to place it in a different location and on the East Coast, and then to shake up the faculty lineup as well when we introduced Dave Lane and Nan Balkwell into the cohort. Again, the primary concern was to put it into an area where we could be directly influenced by the landscape and the energy of the land. Every day in the intensive, we explore body wellness, and we use tools like yoga and meditation. And these philosophies are designed to help us deconstruct that anxiety that comes from judging our work, and really to try and help us explore a sense of presence in the pursuit of art, as opposed to a pursuit of excellence within art. And it's interesting how that approach helps us realign our understanding of the basic principle of puppetry to begin with. In the summer, it's awesome because more of our work can land outside. And with the introduction of different faculty members, we were able to stretch the technical aspects of our art practice and include life drawing, for example, in ways that would allow us to explore how does that inform our puppetry. And the beauty of the New England Puppet Intensive is that it's put into proximity of these amazing art institutions there, the Sterling Clark Art Institute and the Mass MoCA, where we can go and look at work of the masters and then come back and see how that informs our own individual work. Again, the primary exploration point is to explore abstract applications as opposed to the literal necessarily. This year, we're packing it up and taking it on the road. NEPI will happen in association to the Canadian Academy of Mask and Puppetry in Calgary, Alberta, and it will be at the Trout Studio. And it's going to happen in August. And technically, I should have those dates in my head because I'm going to be teaching it, but I'll take it as it comes, sort of live the present moment. But our intensives, the Banff Intensive usually happens in the winter, which is super awesome, and environmentally violent in a way that is informing. And then in the summer, I guess heat is what drives our intensity, that and the thunder rainstorms. Yeah, and then we offer micro workshops, 1 week workshops here and there, but the two intensives are the ones that really are interesting because we're able to take the time to step back and forward in ways that just let us breathe in the exploration. That's what's happening in Alberta.
Great, Peter. Thank you. Thank you. Just a question came in on the chat. Will there be time for Q&A? And absolutely, after we've done these intros, I'll ask the first question, but then the conversation where it goes is up to all of you, panelists and attendees both. Let's move to the other side of Canada now, over to Quebec. South Miller from Les Sages Fous in Trois-Rivières.
Hello, hello. Okay, well, yeah, I don't have anything really written down, so I'm going to improvise, contrary to Peter. Our company's name is Les Sages Fous. My name is South. I'm the artistic director. We were founded 26 years ago. We actually don't have a training program, but Eric invited me anyway, so I'm happy to participate. But we may eventually have one because after 25 years of existence, everything suddenly changed because now we have an amazing space available to us, which is called La Fabrique de Théâtre Insolite, which is where I am. It's an 18th century Anglican chapel and monastery that's completely dedicated to puppetry and object theater now, and the creation of puppetry and object theater. We've been giving workshops for years, but we've never given them actually in our own town. We give them when we're on tour. We've toured all over the place, and so we've given workshops in Sweden and in the States and in Germany and in all sorts of countries, but never here until this past year in February. And maybe this is where some of the pictures that I sent Sarah. Yeah, here's an image of part of the monastery. That's the entrance to the unusual theater factory, La Fabrique de Théâtre Insolite. But there's a picture further down of the first. Okay. Yeah, you're showing another link. I was thinking you were going to show the pictures first.
Oh, okay. I thought you had it all in one.
No, I sent a few different links, but yeah,
Oh,
doesn't matter. I can just improvise.
that is the only link that I have, but I have the images that you sent me originally.
Yeah, I sent a few pictures.
Yeah. You want me to share those?
Yeah, sure.
Share.
So yeah, this was the first year that we were asked to give a week-long workshop to professionals in our space. And we had an amazing time. It was complicated for us to figure out what we wanted to transmit to people. And once we took this very seriously, and we had a great week doing a lot of physical theater work, mask and body work, but also creating puppets and kind of teaching our philosophy of puppetry that we've kind of, invented along the way, and which has a lot of influences with puppeteers that we've studied with or puppeteers that have inspired us. So you can show another image. Yeah. So I think now that this space probably every year will give some kind of master class. I don't think it will necessarily be Les Sages Fous every year. Next year, for example, Punchli Creación, I don't know if you know that incredible Puerto Rican puppetry company, but they're going to be giving a week-long workshop in our Fabrique de Tête Insolite. So I think that this will be a destination for workshops eventually. Yeah, you can show another picture. But I think that the way that that's the building. You see, that's the castle right now that we get to play with. And so in this castle, in this beautiful chapel with the monastery or the chapel is a theater now. And in the monastery, there's an artist apartment and there's all sorts of creation spaces. And I think this is where we've been the most useful as puppeteers sharing our experience. We've developed a festival called the Micro Festival of Unfinished Puppetry. So this is a festival that we put on for the first time, actually 22 years ago. So it's a festival that's been around for a while, but now we're doing it in this incredible new space. And it's basically an invitation for puppeteers who are either at the very beginnings of their work or puppeteers a lot of experience to come and test things that they're working on in front of our audience. I think that for us as a company, a lot of the meetings that we've had with other artists and other puppeteers have been some of the most profound experiences that we've had. And this is what we try to create, an atmosphere where all these people can meet, be scared together, not know where, you know, what they're gonna be able to present in the time that they have in front of them to get their shit together, you know, and everybody just kind of shares this moment. And yeah, so the Micro Festival of Unfinished Puppetry, this is an institution that we've been we've been doing for a while. I have a little video that I sent a link. Sarah, maybe you could just share it. It'll give a kind of an idea of what the atmosphere is like during this festival. And it's something that we do roundtable discussions and all sorts of things during the festival. So people that are interested either to apply to the festival can write us a letter, or yeah, you can maybe just play it while I'm talking, and you don't have to put that. It'll be like, well, okay, well, yeah. So my time is surely up now. I'll be glad to answer questions.
And there will be time to ask them as well. So let's stay on the road in Canada and go yet further east to the beautiful land of Nova Scotia. Jim Morrow from Mermaid Theatre. Tell us what you got.
Hi, Eric. Hi, folks. I just want to say it's an absolute thrill for me to be a part of this, and to talk about the training that happens here in Eastern Canada. Echo Peter's comments. I want to welcome you to the traditional territories of the Mi'kmaq people. Provide just a little context before I launch into some of the training opportunities here. I serve currently as Artistic Director of Mermaid Theatre, a position I've held since 1991. This is my 47th year with Mermaid. Started in 1978, I think it's 47, something like that. And Mermaid, I think most people will recognize as one of North America's leading theaters for family audiences. We create plays for children and their parents and others. And we're a global theater company in that from our modest headquarters here in Windsor, we disseminate our work globally. So our audiences are international. So the work that we create has to appeal to families around the world, which is a challenge, but also a delight for all of us here. Our work is sort of multifaceted, but for the purposes of this this panel and this moment, we have been developing object theater for a long time. We've been incorporating objects into our work since day one. When Evelyn Garbery, Tom Miller, and Lee Lewis started the company back in '72, they had the brilliant idea of telling stories using puppets and objects. And so when I inherited the role of a playmaker back in the late '80s, it was my role to learn how to communicate, how to tell stories using objects. And I was new at it, and I didn't quite know what I was doing. But I've been a student of puppetry my whole life, and something I realized that over time, I'm quite good at it. I know it. I understand it intimately. And so, but it was slow going. It was slow going. As a matter of fact, I was well into my 50s before I actually started calling myself an artist. So now I feel that, yeah, okay, I speak as an artist now. And so my medium is objects. My medium is puppets. And there came a time when we had developed enough knowledge and that it was time to give back. So it was time to use the resources and knowledge that we have to try to inspire others. And so we developed programming to help that and to accommodate that and to welcome people into our headquarters. And we started small. We did outreach, community outreach, stuff like that, like most theater companies are engaged in, welcomed people into our facility and taught the basics of puppet, mostly puppet performance and puppet building. So we continue to do that today. And as we got better at and more knowledgeable about the medium and the art form, we expanded that. There came a time when we thought we might be smart enough and capable enough to begin what we called an intensive, where we invited people to actually pay money to come here and actually learn from us, which was a pretty gaudy thing to do, but we found that there was an appetite for it. Now, to provide another context, I live in Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia traditionally has not been it's not been known for its puppet traditions, and so we were a bit of a wasteland. So we didn't know how much people would be interested in coming and learning this kind of performance. But what we quickly learned is that there was a huge appetite to learn. And so we began an intensive called Animotion, and it started modestly and has grown during the last 20 years to become one of, I think, the premier places to come and study object theater, devised work using objects in a very small place, so like a retreat place. Windsor has only a population of 4,000 people on the Bay of Fundy, and so when you come here, you really want to come here for a reason, besides the beauty and the apples and the pumpkins and all that stuff. So that happened, and so we have welcomed well over 100 people into the Animotion program here at Mermaid, and they come from around the world. The fee is modest. They have to get themselves here, and once here, we take care of them. We wrap our arms around them. We hug them in a very special way and provide a very safe and nurturing environment for them to study work and develop work with our help. And then it occurred to me about 15, 20 years ago that we had to try to, we should give back in another way. The training, performance, and construction was fun, but could we create programming that could welcome established artists and novice artists and beginners into Mermaid to develop actual work? And so I started what was called the Artist Loft. And the Artist Loft is an extraordinary place where individuals can come, reside with us for a period of time, which is negotiated. And in return, they receive access to space, and they receive access to mentorship on puppet performance, construction, play development, dramaturgy, organizational planning, and touring. So all those are the components of Mermaid's Artist Loft. And since its inception, we've literally had hundreds of people interested. Many have come and resided with us. They continue to come. We have up to 8 to 10 residencies a year. They are by request only, and we negotiate a time for them to come. And the key component of this is those that attend have access to space for free, and they have access to mentorship for free. They just simply have to get here. So in some way, that's our way to give back to the community, to grow our puppet community. Many come from Nova Scotia. So what we have done over the years, we have grown a culture. We have grown a puppet culture here in Atlantic Canada. So there are now many satellite companies around Atlantic Canada because of their involvement in both Animotion and the Artist Loft. Once inside the door, they're told that this is now a resource place for you. You can come back whenever you want. You can pick up the phone and call me directly. And I engage with people and help them develop their puppet work in a very personal way. Then in 2015, we decided to start UNIMA Atlantic to help create a pan-Canadian UNIMA. We started with 14 members. We now have over 40. So we're growing puppetry here in Atlantic Canada. We planted the seed here, and as a result, puppetry is starting to develop here through our training programming. You were asked, Eric, and maybe this is for later, but you said something about what do we love about why do we do what we do? And it's because I've been doing this for almost 50 years, but I still consider myself a student of the art form. And I'm continually inspired by mostly the young people who come through the door with brand new ideas. My role is simply to help guide them and shape them and give them some context. But they are inspired, I think, by what I say, but I'm equally inspired by what they say. So it keeps me young. It keeps me alive. It keeps me, I've come to love the medium, and I have done well by it. And so that's my thing. I'm sorry I didn't have any visuals. This is totally analog. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks, everybody.
No apologies necessary. Wonderful, Jim. Thanks. Okay, so last but by no means least, jumping into the big town of Toronto, Anne and David Powell, the Puppet Mongers. Tell us what you want to tell us.
I guess we should also say that we are on the traditional land of the Mississaugas of the Credit currently. Quite recently, a treaty was signed paying them for what they had not been paid for in the majority of the city. But there are many other peoples who have been here or now are here now. You're on. You would history. Oh, okay. Puppet Mongers is just finishing up its 53rd anniversary. In 1995, we were chatting with Johan van der Gaan of Lampoon Theatre and realized there were no young new companies that we knew of that had started since we'd all started back in the 70s. So we thought, well, let's start doing some classes and see what happens. And the Toronto School of Puppetry has grown from that. It's a host group, really. We run some of the classes, Anne and I, sometimes me, sometimes Anne, but also a lot of local puppeteers who have great things to teach, offer courses through our system.
And beyond puppetry as well, it's just all the kinds of aspects we have discovered over the years that are really necessary to have an interest in or be knowing about to create puppet theatre. Not just about making puppets, putting on the stage.
Yeah. So things that have changed have been during COVID, we went online, and since then we've had people teaching classes like from Victoria, BC, Tim Gosley, and other folks around.
Rag and Bone in Ottawa.
Yeah, as well as that. And then we've also, what have we added to it? Yes, we took an idea from the Center for Puppetry Arts in Atlanta, and we created the PXL, the Puppetry Exploratory Laboratory, which is a program that starts usually beginning of February, and some people propose an idea they want to work on, and some people want to work on an idea with people, and our studio space is available for them, and our advice and all that, and they get to work on something or other. And by the end, thank you for the picture. By the end of it, they have something to perform at an event we run called the Fresh Ideas in Puppetry. So let's see the next slide. What's it going to be? People who come in to teach things at different times during the year, usually weekends, sometimes week-long, but often just weekends. So there's some rod marionettes someone made, and someone making a good puppeteer there working on a tabletop puppet. What's next? This is from, on the left is someone making a very simple cardboard version of an Indonesian wayang golek puppet. On the right are some people making toy theaters out of cardboard boxes.
These are some of the workshops we teach ourselves.
Yeah, and what's further down the page? Guest artists. Frank Mescalite, really great at teaching how to work with camera and Muppet style puppets. He's done great work with that. We've had Old Trout came in and did a really nice, messy latex head casting. And Noreen Young, recently deceased, unfortunately, also did a workshop on latex heads and little bodies and stuff. And incredible artist Ingrid Hansen actually came and took classes early on. And she came in and taught this workshop on object puppetry. It was quite a hoot. This is from the Exploratory Laboratory. In fact, the one on the left, it's not Ingrid, but she was working with this gentleman whose name I've forgotten, trying to do doing a stop motion animation movie. Sure. And Ben Lee also with some friends put on a developed piece over several months there. And here's people at the intensive. We run this 2-week intensive in June. People come from all over the world, and they have to find their own housing and stuff. There they have styrofoam blocks, and they are learning the basics of whittling faces out of colored styrofoam. Very messy. And on the left, oh yeah, this is a cool exercise. We get 2x2 sticks, put them on a little base, and everyone gets all sorts of bits of fabric and a staple gun, and they get to decide how they're going to dress their stick to be a person. Costume training.
Rather than getting too fancy in costumes, so like the squint effect.
Yeah.
As I call it for puppetry.
Then we mentioned the Fresh Ideas Conference. That's usually in late May or early June. And it's 2 days these days, 1 day live, 1 day online. The online, of course, people from all over the world present videos, send in video links. And the online, the live one is, you have people from the States presenting, all sorts of people locally, of course, and from far afield, presenting live in a little theater. And there's a lot of discussion. What the presenting is shows that they have recently built or are still working on, or just talking about the ideas of stuff they're working on.
And then the people who come to our class is a real mix. Usually we can have about 8 people in our studio, because it's not big, and actually we have just recently moved to a smaller one for financial reasons. For our intensive, we always offer a couple of BIPOC scholarships also, for people to include a couple of people who maybe can't afford to be there and wouldn't usually have that opportunity. And the mix, the participants are absolutely mixed. Sometimes it's emerging to submerging puppeteers, a lot of experience or less experience. It's sometimes people who just have an interest in puppetry, want to know more. So it's really a range, which we love. It's a lovely mixture when you all get together in the room.
Yeah, quite a range of skills they bring.
There was one year, actually, just a couple of years ago, where UNIMA Canada, there was a Canada Council grant, and they arranged a program that included all 4 intensives across the country, and artists could apply, and there were 6 or 8 selected, anyway, who went to each of the 4 intensives across the country. And that was really very different. So these professional, with, much more experienced puppetry people attending. Yeah.
I think that's what we got to say for now.
Yeah. Oh, you were going to say what you get out of it.
Oh, what I get out of it. I think I like running the school because it keeps me in touch with puppeteers all over the world.
And I really like what comes out of it, through the people being engaged in this wide array of ideas and skills and techniques, materials to mess around with, and the excitement that that generates.
All good.
There you go.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anne and David. I want to mention that we in the training programs, both the panelists here today and the panelists who were here in April of US programs, we all started talking to each other because a Canadian puppeteer and writer, Jeremy Bartram, had pulled us all together during COVID to start this conversation. And it was out of those conversations that we had on Zoom with each other that the idea to open that conversation up to attendees to talk with us emerged. So so this is actually a perfect time to jump into letting that happen. I was going to ask the first question, but I don't need to, because I think you've touched on so many of the things that I had in mind. And the one thing I'll say before we turn this over to the attendees to put their questions in the chat is someone on, not in the chat, in the Q&A. So put it in the Q&A function, your questions. But someone in the chat did write, please could we all be a little bit louder and maybe get closer to the microphone when we speak. Great. So I am going to go to the Q&A function, which I know is here. And there it is. And there we are. And there's two, there's 3 questions already. We're moving right along. Good. I want to say that this has been recorded, and the panel in April with US puppeteers has also been recorded. And so I assume Sarah can tell us, can people access those videos?
Yes, I think that they're sent to UNIMA, and UNIMA should have them set up on their website.
Great. Thank you. So, hi, Michelle. Nice to hear you in the chat, in the Q&A, sorry. Michelle asks, is there a link to attend the workshop program? So I'm not sure who this is addressed to. The workshop program, goodness, it could be any one of you. But you all have links on your website. Is that what I understand? Yeah. There you are. Okay. Question for Peter. Are there opportunities in the future for the indigenous of, I can't pronounce it, but I think, are you in New Zealand? Is that where you're writing from? The indigenous to participate in the puppet intensive workshops. This is coming from Orawa. Pardon me if I mispronounce your name.
Oh, yes. Well, we started working on some specific projects with Indigenous communities in Southern Alberta, and it completely ratified our understanding of our relationship to the land and how we work as a community, and the reasons that we work within the community, the elders that we worked with, the other ways of knowing, the older ways of knowing. It just it put a complete turn into our arc, and where like the puppet mongers were saying, we do hold subsidies for artists that are coming from other areas and other communities to engage in puppetry. And then what we're doing primarily with the Indigenous communities is taking workshops to them. So we go into some of the reserves and explore introducing the concept of puppetry into storytelling. It's not an immediate way of storytelling amongst many of these community members, but interestingly, I'm trying to put a traditional doll making workshop together with this Cree elder Ekti Cardinal, and and she spoke at the Banff Puppet Intensive to the puppeteers, and then she saw all the puppets, and she said, I need this to come to my community. And what I was really hoping was that she might also introduce some of her ceremonial and traditional ways of doll making, because that just allows us to have a different relationship to the work, which, again, as Jim said, is, you know, it affords how we learn as continuous students of art. So we're always trying to find ways to expand that.
Yeah, Kristen has kind of asked all of you in a broader sense, if you could each describe your application process and what it is that you look for in an application, so that, right, so people know if you would be looking for them.
Somebody want to take that?
For the 2-week intensive in June, we asked people to send us an email explaining why they would like to be there.
A little bit about themselves.
A bit about themselves, what they've done, who they are, where they are. And we sort of look through those and say, we have these folks all look decent, let's take them in. For the other programs, it's a sign up, you know, put your money on our counter and we'll bring you into the workshop.
Yeah,
And
Jim or
similarly,
South?
the Puppetry Exploratory Laboratory also, people send us, they've got an idea for a project or they want to participate. And we read through all that. We maybe choose 2 projects that look like they're very different from each other and might be interesting to work on for 4 months. And we select a little bit that way, curate.
Yeah, it's all online. Once in a while, we get the actual letter with a stamp on it. Not common.
Jim or South? Would one of you want to jump in?
I'll chime in, South. Is that okay? Hi, Kristen. I can't see you, but nice to hear from you. For the Animotion program, it's a very simple thing. There's an application online. There are questions about why you want to do it, but that's not necessary. Those who have an interest in, they could be practitioners or enthusiasts, it doesn't matter. The criteria is very loose, but there's an application process, and there's a $150 deposit, and that will secure a place for someone. But all the fee is negotiable. We do it not to make money. We simply do it to provide opportunity. But there is a fee of $800 plus HST, which is our local tax. But that's all negotiable depending on people's means. And we do have scholarships available for those who can't afford. For the Artist Loft, it's simply a phone call or an email to me, and we negotiate a relationship and try to find a time and block out time, and we put it aside, and they come and avail of our space and our mentorship, and that's just something that's done informally.
South?
Yeah, okay. Well, for our micro festival of unfinished puppetry, or even to come and do a residency here, which isn't a training program per se, but has a lot of benefits, I think, on developing our career when we have access to other people who are working on things or at different levels in their practice. It really comes down to the project absolutely needing to be done by the person who's proposing it. That's like our first criteria. Do you have to do this project? And really wanting to take the risk of the very scary risk of trying something new when you're here in Trois-Rivières, taking the time to develop, where either you're starting from scratch or you're starting somewhere in the process, but you take a risk when you come here. It's wanting to take a risk and being around other people that are taking risks too. There you go. That's basically how we analyze our dossiers when we get them.
Peter, you've made some comments about this as you were speaking earlier, but is there anything you want to add specifically about this idea of what you want to know about someone who comes into the program, or in order to come into the program?
I don't think I've ever turned an applicant away. I would have to say that. What I find super interesting is where I wonder how they're going to fit in, and that excites me. But you know, like just to get a sense of the person before they show up, of course. But it's it's the excitement of wondering how is the chemistry going to create itself. So I think the articulation itself is validation, and then let's see what happens.
Mhm. So the next question is whether you have scholarships in your program, but I think most of you have commented about that one way or the other. So I think I'll move through that. I think you commented it. The question came in after, before you had addressed that. And here's an interesting question that someone asks. How do you go from being an artist and a practitioner to being a mentor and a trainer? This attendee says, I find it a very different mindset.
I think it's all in the ego, isn't it?
Well, I should hope not, but why not? I don't know. Did someone have some thoughts about that?
I think there's a lot of crossover. You just find people start to ask you a little bit.
Yeah.
Could you come see my thing? What do you think?
Yeah.
What about how would I do so and so? And it just sort of grows from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, we're constantly wanting to learn. So everyone we get close to like that, we suck ideas from as well.
It's two-way.
Jim?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it took me a long time to find my voice, to find out that I might have something to say that others might find worthwhile. I was really busy just making and doing, but to flip it around and to teach. And I actually started with children, teaching children. And as I kept doing, I realized that, and you know what? Teaching really helps me reevaluate how I feel about what I do. And what I was saying 20 years ago, 30 years ago is totally different than what I'm saying today. Some of it may have remained, but as I grow as an artist, it changes. So today I think I know much more about it, and I have the language to help support that. But I had to develop over a period of time. And if we're lucky enough to live as long as we do, it's really important that we do give back and inspire as much as we can others in whatever we do. But, our medium is puppetry. It's kind of an obscure thing, but that's what we do. And so if we can inspire people to create work using objects and puppets and make them better people, and in return make us better people, I think that's the thing. So it's less about, am I doing it right or wrong? Doesn't matter. It's just engaging with people and having that conversation and allowing yourself to be right and wrong, and you will grow a voice ultimately. I hope that helped, Anonymous.
Oh, we also started with kids in schools. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, that's
Still
always
do.
going into schools and teaching kids how to do simple, basic puppet stuff,
Putting on shows.
giving them a good time.
Yeah. Simple materials.
It's a part of PTSD there, David. You've forgotten about that from the deep trenches. Do you know, I'll just add something to this note too, and it sort of ties into a little bit what Jim was saying, but I always forget about the people in the room often when I'm going into where I'm facing the idea of, I have to teach a thing. And you assume that because you're standing in that position as instructor that you're supposed to hold answers, but that's not necessarily the case. And really it's to provoke. And one of the things I'm always delightfully reminded about when I'm in the room is the engagement with the participants that are there. And they are the ones that are going to create, really it's just about creating a collective vocabulary in the room to be able to explore an immediate question and sort of arrive at a new understanding in this moment, which will change the next time you approach it. And so it's not about teaching 2 + 2 = 4. It's about how do we understand it in this moment, and then allowing that to be a thing that takes you forward to discover another way to just understand what you just found out.
I'm going to pick on what Peter said, and I think that's really wonderful, Peter, because I personally don't go into a room thinking I am the teacher or the mentor. I'm actually a participant in the process, an equal participant in the process. I have a voice, you have a voice, everyone has a voice in the room. And so collectively we develop the work together or the moment together and without ego. In absence of an idea, I'll have it. I'll keep moving the thing forward, but really I'm just one of the people in the room. And that helps, it helps make people feel, I think, a little more comfortable, but it's not designed. I find that's the best way to engage people and have them develop their own work. So it's not paternalistic and it's not top down. It's certainly it's more communal. I think that's along the lines of what you were saying, Peter.
I'm going to move us along because we have a wonderful number of questions pouring in, and they're interesting. Alex asks, it seems that the focus is on people who already have an interest in puppetry, other than Muppet puppets that seem to be the standard awareness of non-puppetry people. The challenge of broadening the awareness that there are many styles and traditions of puppetry. How do you reach the uninitiated? I'd love to throw this to South because I think it's your turn.
Okay. How do you reach the uninitiated?
The
Well,
uninitiated.
uninitiated. Well, I
Yes.
think, as I said before, we don't have an ongoing training program, but we're always proposing puppetry for a local audience. We've been and we invited Sandglass to come and perform. I think that the uninitiated, first they have to fall in love with puppetry somewhere. They have to see it. They have to want it. So we do a lot of that, showing all sorts of people from all sorts of economic levels crazy puppetry and getting them to fall in love with it. And then, well, afterwards, they somehow find a way to seek you out and find out how they can find out more. And then either they come and help you, or they come and work, on the table next to us, or they start to, it grows from there. You have to see it and really love it.
Anyone else want to jump in on that?
That's one of the things I enjoy going into classrooms actually with kids who, again, whose expectation is what they see on TV, Muppets. But we're going to make shadow puppets, or we're going to make toy theaters, or we're going to make rod puppets. And it's like, oh, there's more to this. And they get really enamored of it all. And they're probably going to grow up being more interested in a wider world of puppet theater. I always hope.
And I'll just kind of add to this conversation for a moment because something that's come up in how the Sandglass training program, which was talked about in April, how that developed. But it came out of when I was teaching in college, when I was teaching theater in college, and one of my students once said, and I quote him on this, he said, there's two kinds of training programs. There's the ones that go broad and try to give the participants an experience of as many approaches to theater or puppetry as possible. And there's the ones that go deep, which take one approach and just see how deep into that we can go. And they're both completely legitimate, and people are looking for generally one or the other, at least at some place in their training. Do any of you have kind of a thought about where you fit on that spectrum?
Yeah, okay. One of the great impediments to puppetry is the word puppet, let's face it. Because it conjures in the mind of the uninitiated certain styles, certain forms. And so I think personally, I'm not averse to the traditional form at all. And as a matter of fact, we teach it. But when we're teaching the uninitiated, what we try to do is get them inspired to be inspired by the object and allow the object to develop into a fully formed puppet. It's not a traditional puppet. They don't make a rod puppet or a marionette, or they make an object that they then can use to communicate with. So, essentially that's how we approach the work. as opposed to from a traditional style. And we're going to teach you marionettes today and or rod puppets tomorrow. However, in the training, we do try to touch on a lot of those. But in the development of devised work, we simply say, here's a rock. Now go make a play. And through that, they learn that the object has a voice. And they themselves have to find that voice and listen to it and learn how to communicate for it and with it. And so from that, the knowledge is transferable to anything they pick up, whether it's a traditional style and or another object that they've transformed into a puppet. And what we find is that that's glorious. It's absolutely amazing. And so what they discover is that they discover a voice, their voice, along with the voice of the object that they've chosen. There it is.
It's a tricky question, really, in some respect. And I think it's tied to the length of the event itself. If you're running a 15-day intensive, then you are going to have a broader lens on things. And if you're running a 5-day, you're going to identify a thing that you're going to dig into a little bit. And you know, we always want to create a common vocabulary, and we do really appreciate the variety of experience. It's lovely to have somebody in there who's been working at it for a bit and somebody who's like, oh, I was just super interested in this. And to collide those two individuals and to remind the person with experience to try to get back to the beginner's mind and to empower the person who's just starting with this idea that they don't have to have all of the answers. And as Jim says, just get a rock and explore where it takes you. So, you know, but I think, and circling back to the previous question, even it is a constant state of redefining how you're going to approach the point of investigation to begin with. And so the more you do it, the more you discover these options on ways to go into it. It would be fun to go, we're going to do 15 days and this is the one point we're going to work on breath and let's see where that takes us. And we're going to argue for 5 days about breath until we, you know,
Run out of breath.
Run out of breath.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a very specific question from Este. I'm in Winnipeg, and we have a puppet collective here that constitutes both professional and newer puppeteers. We have run into years of roadblocks with getting arts funding for our annual shows, which we have run for over 12 years. I'm interested, for any members of the panel, if you came across similar roadblocks and what makes a good residency festival workshop. Is it too ambitious to start a puppet festival, which some of our newer members have suggested, when we can't get more funding for our performances? Very practical question, nuts and bolts, folks.
Well, we've had 50 years of fun of trying for funding.
It is dwindling for us.
Yeah.
The Fresh Ideas event, the 2-day festival, there's box office revenue, and we're only able, a couple of times we've managed to get a grant so we could actually pay the performers and presenters a decent fee, but we offer them a little bit, a token, but mostly it's because it's a community building event. The puppeteers like to see each other's work. It's exciting. It gives them power for the rest of the year. So most of the performers and presenters and people in it are very happy. And some actually say, don't bother paying at all. But so that is really done on a shoestring. You don't have to have a huge and flashy festival.
But keep trying for funding.
Oh, yeah.
South, this is a question that sort of falls right in your lap and what Sajfu do in terms of presenting festivals and micro festivals, and right.
Well, our festival, yeah, we've made sure, I mean, we don't have specific funding for that festival either. So it's something that we present on a shoestring as well. And we want to keep it simple as well. We don't want it to get out of hand, and we want to keep it kind of punk and do it yourself. So yeah, I think that funding has, you know, advantages, obviously, but it can also have some disadvantages in the sense that you can kind of take the maybe the heart out of a project by getting too serious about it. I don't know. I'm not really sure. You know, I do think creating a puppetry festival is complicated, though, I must admit. There's nothing easy about that.
Yeah, Jim?
Yeah, there's a new festival starting here in Atlantic Canada. So I sit on a committee that's developing the idea for that. And what we realize is, like any good festival starts small, and it's you have to grow capacity. And so a lot of it involves volunteer time in the beginning. People throwing stuff in a hat and doing it, and they do everything, and you just start and you begin to grow your audiences. More difficult to apply for investment. And by the way, I don't use the term funding anymore. I simply use the term investment because funding delegitimizes what we do. So we require legitimate investment in this kind of activity, and you stand a better chance of getting investment in your work by government agencies if you can build capacity. And you have to put in the time. And that might take a year, might take 2, might take 5 years. But at some point, once you show that you're serious about what you do, then it doesn't mean you just don't apply every year. But at some point, someone will go, these people have been doing this for a while. They deserve our investment into their work. So
Yeah.
that's
Just out of curiosity. Yeah. Really interesting point, Jim. What town is this new festival going to be happening in?
It's going to be a pan-Nova Scotian festivals.
Wow.
Yeah, it's starting in the small town of Canning, once called Apple Tree Landing, now Canning. And it's a beautiful little rural place and on a river, and it's just gorgeous. And I welcome everybody to Nova Scotia to come see it at some point.
Is it specifically a puppetry festival?
Ultimately, it will be just a puppet festival. Yeah. And
Oh.
many UNIMA members are associated with it. A lot of them graduates of Animotion and our Artist Loft. And so they've branched out, and the community thinks they're ready. They think that now it's ready time to have and as the puppet mongers know, we did have a festival here in the late 70s, early 80s, of which they were performers at our festival. But there hasn't been one since about 1980. But there's a movement here now, which is really quite exciting. So to the person, SD, I guess it was, it's my advice is to do it, just bloody do it, but start small and take biteable chunks. Don't try to take the whole pie at once.
So we're rolling toward the end. We had said that we'd have this meeting for between an hour and 15 minutes, and so Kristen has sent what I think of as a really, really great question to wrap things up on, and maybe everybody would address this. What is something that's challenging in training for puppetry in particular? And Peter, I think it's your turn. I'm going to throw that ball to you.
Why do I have to go first? Challenge is starting.
What's something that's challenging in training for puppetry in particular?
For the trainers or the trainees?
The rest is open to interpretation.
It is an awesome question, I must say. Like, you know, there is a mountain of challenge just at the implication of moving into training. One of the things I liked to do, I haven't done this in a while, but I used to do this, and it would be like on the first night, and I would break the participants into groups, and I would say, okay, I want you to come up with a clear delineation of what constitutes a puppet. How do you define a puppet? And man, it always got heated, like passionate arguments would just be flying off the handle. It was so awesome. And where we would arrive at the end of these scrums would be this sort of understanding or this acceptance that it's very difficult to define a rule upon the idea of puppetry. And the minute that you do is the minute that you possibly restrict or close doors. And so to embrace the idea that there are no rules, now go to. But there's irony in solution. And the irony to that is that you are now faced with this immense challenge of where to go if there are no particular rules.
Mm.
I'll say that, but get to lunch on time. That's probably the rule that you should hold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jim.
Thanks, Kristen. I think the hardest thing, the most challenging thing when training is to get people to think for the puppet, to give the puppet a voice. And I don't mean a voice, but I mean how the puppet moves through space with thought. That in every moment, the puppet is thinking, and how to get that thought inside the human out into the object so that it becomes less technical and more immersive and more intimate. The hardest thing is for you to think the emotion and to feel the emotion and to push it into the object. For me, that's the most challenging. And I find when I work with novice performers and they have that intuitively, it's startling to me. I mean, quite frankly, I can't pick up an object and move it from point A to point B without feeling for it. And that's what moves it. But to teach someone to do that, before I die, I've got to figure out a way to do that. Then my life will be complete.
One of the things we do, well, we're right in the middle of our intensive these 2 weeks. And the last week was broken up into workshops, making all kinds of different kinds of puppetry and all kinds of aspects of puppetry. And then this next week, we'll work on a project with the participants. On Monday, we'll be talking about, well, okay, let's choose a little story or an idea or something to work on and delve deep into it. We don't allow script writing. We storyboard. And I think because scripts, puppets don't do well just standing beside each other, talking at each other. You really got to get to know your puppet that you've built or has been built or whatever. Find its voice, how it speaks, but what it's saying, how it thinks, how it listens, how it moves, all those aspects, which if you've got a script in front of you, you're not going to find the time to do that as well.
We've sometimes been called in to a theater company or a dance company or something, and they say, we want to do some puppets. Can you teach our people to work the puppets? And what we find is that maybe 50% of them instantly can play. They've got it in their head, it's play. And the other, look at me, I've got a puppet. And so breaking that without breaking them.
It's tough because all their actor training has been about themselves, their bodies.
Yeah.
Very hard to put that aside. At the end of
What's his name? Has a workshop series. Mike Peterson thought that one through, and he's got a series of exercises that help people come from themselves into the object, into the puppet.
Sometimes he calls it teach your puppet to act.
Yeah.
We would add that to think.
Teach your puppet to think. Yes, acting's all very well, but you got to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
South, the next to the last word is yours. The last word will be mine, but the next to the last word is yours.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think that it's really difficult to let yourself take risks and to trust that actually when a puppet starts to work, it's that it's moving you more than you moving it. And I think that's, if there's anything that we manage when we meet other artists or when we give workshops to other artists, if there's something that we could hand down to them from our experience, is that don't make the puppet move. Let the puppet move itself and follow the puppet. Puppet makes its own decisions. That's when you know it's a good one.
I'll point out that the puppet isn't an actor who's just taking on a role for you. The puppet is that character, always. You have to discover that.
Oh, you got into that second last word.
Sorry. I come away from somebody else. Somebody else say something quick.
My turn. I want to thank the panelists for taking part. in this. I thought this was a wonderful discussion. I was really fascinated and had a lot to listen to that was enjoyable and stimulating for me. Oh, we're screen sharing. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. Attendees, if you're not UNIMA members, think about joining. We'd love to have you on board. What else is there? I think I've enjoyed the relationship of these two panels, the US puppeteers and the Canadian puppeteers, and it inspires me to think that maybe there's a way to bring more people in the world into a Zoom room and talk about this really, really interesting idea about how we train. So once again, my thanks to Kathy and to Sarah and to the UNIMA board for having us, and to Jeremiah Bartram, who inspired this. But as Garrison Keillor said, right, do good work, keep in touch.
Nice.
Thank you. Especially keep in touch with Jim because he's offered.
Yeah. Thanks,
Right.
Eric.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.